The Greedy Bear and the Honey. Deep in a quiet forest, where sunlight spilled through tall trees and birds sang sweet melodies, lived a bear named Bruno. Bruno was not like the other bears who were content to eat just enough to stay strong. He loved honey more than anything else in the world, and as time went on, his love for it grew into something more, a greed that nothing seemed able to satisfy. Even when he was full, he would wander around, sniffing for more, dreaming of golden jars and dripping combs hidden in the shadows of the forest. Bruno's den was filled with the honey he had collected over the years. Pots of it lined the shelves, and even the floor was sticky with spilled sweetness. Yet every morning he would peek outside, sniff the air, and set off again to find more. He would take honey from places that belonged to others. Beehives carefully built by the forest bees, jars left by wandering humans, and even honey stored by other animals for winter. Bruno never thought about sharing. He only thought about taking more. The other animals in the forest had begun to notice Bruno's behavior. The rabbits whispered among themselves, "He never stops. He doesn't care about anyone but himself." The squirrels shook their heads, hiding their own honey. Even the wise old owl, who had watched the forest for decades, sighed deeply whenever Bruno's shadow passed by. They knew that greed, if unchecked, could bring trouble, but they also knew that Bruno never listened. One warm spring morning, Bruno's nose led him to a massive honey tree deep in the forest, its trunk wide and ancient, its branches heavy with golden combs dripping with sweet nectar. This tree was special. The bees that lived there were clever and protective. They had survived many winters and were proud of their treasure. Bruno, seeing the glistening honey, felt his heart race. He had to have it all. He climbed the tree with surprising speed, his eyes locked on the honey at the highest branches. He ignored the buzzing of the bees and the warnings of the smaller animals who scurried below. "It's mine," he muttered to himself. "Every drop belongs to me." The bees swarmed angrily, stinging him on the nose and ears, but Bruno didn't care. His greed had blinded him to everything else. Hours passed as Bruno stuffed honey into his paws and mouth. He was so focused on taking more that he did not notice the weight of his body, the branches bending dangerously under his bulk. The tree creaked and groaned. The wind rustled through the leaves like whispers of warning. Still, Bruno continued, humming with satisfaction as he imagined the honey jars lining his den, each one a trophy of his greed. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Bruno looked down, his eyes wide in shock, as the branch he was standing on snapped. He fell with a tremendous crash, tumbling through the leaves and landing hard on the forest floor. Pain shot through his body, and the honey he had grabbed scattered across the ground, mixed with dirt and broken twigs. The bees buzzed triumphantly, guarding what was left of their treasure. Bruno groaned, his head spinning. He tried to get up, but the fall had bruised him badly, and he realized that his greed had caused him not only pain but also loss. The jars and combs he had taken were ruined or lost. His den, once full, suddenly seemed less important. He could feel regret stirring in his chest, though he didn't yet know how to change. As Bruno lay on the ground, the other animals cautiously approached. The squirrels peeked from the trees, the rabbits hopped closer, and even the wise old owl watched from above. None of them scolded him. They had all been hurt or threatened by his greed before, but this time they simply observed. They wanted him to understand the lesson on his own. Bruno slowly rose to his feet, wincing at every movement. The forest was quiet now, except for the bees buzzing and cleaning up their hives. He felt a strange emptiness in his chest, a realization that no matter how much honey he took, it could not bring true happiness. He looked at the jars in his den and at the scattered combs on the ground, and he saw for the first time how foolish his greed had made him. The next few days were slow and painful. Bruno avoided the honey tree and stayed near his den, reflecting on what had happened. The other animals watched cautiously, wondering if he would return to his old ways. Slowly, Bruno began to understand that greed does not only hurt others, it hurts the one who gives in to it. He felt shame and regret, but also a spark of determination to change. Instead of stealing from others, Bruno started helping them. He shared the honey that was left in his den with animals who were hungry. He helped the birds rebuild nests and the squirrels gather nuts. The forest began to notice the change. While Bruno had not forgotten the sweetness of honey, he realized that friendship, trust, and peace were far more valuable. Every shared bite brought him a new kind of joy, one that did not hurt anyone and did not come at a price. Over time, the forest healed from Bruno's past greed. The honey tree remained guarded by the clever bees, But Bruno no longer saw it as a prize to conquer. Instead, he admired it from afar, learning patience and respect. Other animals slowly began to trust him again, and a quiet peace returned to the forest. Bruno still enjoyed honey, but never more than he needed. The jars in his den became less about possession and more about sharing. When he saw a young cub staring too long at the honey, he would warn gently, "Too much desire can hurt you more than you think." And so, through pain, mistakes, and reflection, Bruno finally understood what the wise owl had known all along: that greed always brings punishment if left unchecked. By the time the seasons passed, Bruno had become a legend in the forest. Not because of how much honey he had taken, but because of how much he had learned to give and how he had changed. The forest buzzed and whispered stories of the greedy bear who had once taken too much, but who had learned that true sweetness comes from wisdom, patience, and sharing. Moral of the story: greed brings punishment,